Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Thursday, the 6th of March, 2025. This is program number 1332 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calixte George Jr. Now, in addition to radio 101.1 FM, you also have us online at our website, rcistlucia.com. You can also download our previous shows on that platform, and we are streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. Now, of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message us on WhatsApp. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. We want to send out some birthday greetings for today. First, Miss Sadia Charles. Happy birthday to you, Sadia. And we do hope that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Hope it's a great and very special day to you. And also to Mr. Augustine Poyot. He's celebrating his birthday today. So a big shout out to him. And we're wishing him an absolutely fantastic celebration. Hope it is a great one. And to Mr. Miguel Luisi. Happy birthday to you, and we're hoping that you're enjoying your very special day. Please stay blessed and enjoy it to the fullest. A bit of history for today, some interesting history, in fact, for March the 6th. First, we go far back to 1479, where the Treaty of Alcachovas saw Portugal ceding the Canary Islands to the Kingdom of Castile in exchange for claims in West Africa. In 1836, on this day, the Battle of the Alamo. After 13 days of fighting, 1,500 to 3,000 Mexican soldiers overwhelm the Texan defenders, killing 182 of the 257 Texans who were held up in the Alamo, including William Travis, Jim Bowie, and Davy Crockett. In the year 1857, on this day, March the 6th, saw the Dred Scott decision, where the United States Supreme Court ruled that African Americans could not be United States citizens. 1869, on this day, a bit of science history, Dmitry Mendeleev presented the first periodic table of the elements to the Russian Chemical Society. 1899, on this day, aspirin, and that was patented by Felix Hoffmann at the German company Bayer. 1921, on this day, the police in Sunbury in the state of Pennsylvania, U.S., issued an edict requiring women to wear skirts at least 4 inches below the knee. And in 1964, on this day, boxing legend Cassius Clay joined the Nation of Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ali, calling his former title a, quote, slave name. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And of course, as I did mention, the world has certainly been placed in a very, very uncertain state of affairs. And of course, that is as a result of significant shifts in what can be considered long-standing policies and alliances in terms of the geopolitical order that has existed in the world for many, many decades, certainly since the outcome of World War II, which ended back in 1945, which saw the in the aftermath of it, seeing the creation of institutions such as the United Nations, and of course that entire ecosystem of international United Nations related entities and institutions, which still to this day exist, and as well a number of other institutions, such as that of what are known as the Bretton Woods agencies of the World Bank, as well as the International Monetary Fund. Of course, all three of those institutions are, in fact, headquartered in the United States of America. In the case of the UN, it is along the banks of the East River in New York City. And in the case of the IMF and the World Bank, being headquartered in Washington, District of Columbia. And perhaps there's no mistake about that. The United States has certainly been a critical player in global affairs, effectively the world's superpower coming out of that time because of its significant involvement in World War II, effectively saving the day for Europe, which of course was facing the devastation of the Axis powers, led of course by the Nazis in Germany under Adolf Hitler, but as well other players like Mussolini over in Italy, and other proponents of that fascist movement in Europe. And we saw the devastation that came out of what was, of course, a very, very bloody and difficult war in Europe. And we saw genocide occurring in heinous ways. We saw the gas chambers of places like Auschwitz and other concentration camps geared towards annihilating the Jewish population. And in the aftermath of that, we saw certainly a lot of actions being taken to try to right a lot of wrongs which occurred as a result of this period of tremendous destruction in Europe. Now, of course, there was some level of bargaining that occurred. One of the major players fighting the Nazis was also the Red Army, led by, of course, Joseph Stalin out of the USSR. And they, in fact, were able to reach Berlin, one of the first, in fact, reach Berlin. And invariably, the settlement that had to be reached meant that there had to be some sharing, so to speak, of influence in Europe. And so Eastern Europe fell under the curtain and influence of the Soviet Union. And of course, in those days, they were under a system of communism. And of course, that was put forward for many of these countries as the way for them to see their futures, including, of course, East Germany and Czechoslovakia and Poland and Hungary. Many of the countries in the Balkans as well came under that influence. Of course, we eventually saw the collapse of the Soviet Union at the end of what was known as the Cold War. This sort of a standoff of sorts, which had many boundaries in West Berlin and East Berlin, the Berlin Wall, which came tumbling down in 1989, and then later on the negotiations, which eventually led to the warming of very icy relations between the United States and the USSR, led by Mikhail Gorbachev, and then eventually, of course, a process of what one could say democratization of that region and the collapse of the USSR, which led to the creation of many states which were formerly within the USSR. Um, Russia, of course, being the hegemonic power, was not able to hold together that federation, that union of Soviets, and which then saw the creation of a wide variety of states, both in Asia as well as in Europe. And so, of course, at that point, many of the stans were created: Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, in the steppe regions of Asia, but as well in the Caucasus regions. We saw the creation of other countries in that region, in Georgia, for example, and of course in Europe, in the steppe regions of Europe, the likes of Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, and of course even along the Baltic Sea, the likes of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And that was, of course, a move which, of course, meant that these countries were now looking for their own identity, their own means of defining who they were, because they were no longer wishing to identify, in the main, with Russia, and were looking to have a more westward outlook. And as time went on, of course, we saw that those countries eventually aspiring and, in fact, becoming, many of them becoming part of the European Union, and even further than that, also becoming part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, which again was one of those entities that came out of that post-World War II situation. That entity effectively meaning to say, hey, Europe will remain safe with the cooperation and guarantee of the United States of America. In that period, 1990s and beyond, of course, we saw a tremendous change of play, and we saw the United States effectively becoming the only superpower, both economically as certainly militaristically as well, at that point. Of course, a lot of this which was going on at that time, let's not forget, was being driven by the threat of a nuclear war. And the United States benefited in that period of war during World War II. A number of European scientists came across, sought refuge in the United States, and in fact became part of a number of programs geared towards realizing nuclear fission and the creation of the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb, and the hydrogen bomb. And of course, that has all been captured now, I think, in movies, the Manhattan Project, and what have you. So that, of course, was the real threat at the time during the Cold War. The United States being the only country that's fought to, in fact, use nuclear warfare in some military setting, in the case of Japan, ending the war in the Pacific over there. And we, but then had other players like the Soviet Union also developing their own programs, nuclear program, and then later on, the British developing their own as well. Of course, there was a lot of espionage going on. We should also make mention of, nobody wanted to necessarily reinvent the wheel completely. But and then, of course, later on, the French were able to have nuclear weapons, and later on, other countries, India, Pakistan was looking at that as well. South Africa, and let's not forget another entity which came out of that post-war period, the realization of the Jewish state of Israel, also believed to have had their own nuclear warhead capabilities. And so in the post-Cold War period, a lot of effort was placed at trying to de-escalate this fear of a nuclear war, because we've seen how devastating it can be, and we know how devastating it can be. And in fact, you could even say that the country that on which we are looking so much at right now these days, that of Ukraine, has seen the impacts of nuclear because of meltdowns at plants, and a plant like Chernobyl, for example. Still areas that have to be contained up to this day because of the issue of radiation. And Ukraine itself was a pretty vital part of the USSR for many different reasons. Certainly because of its location on the Black Sea. It meant that it actually had an all-weather port, that those ports along the Black Sea were definitely sought after by the USSR from a strategic military perspective, to be able to have an all-weather access to the rest of the world. And so Crimea, of course, was very important in that regard. And in addition to that, of course, the agricultural output, the industrial output of Ukraine was very, very important. And of course, Ukraine also had, was used by the USSR to have nuclear warheads. And so, in fact, in the outcome of the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was also one of those countries that, in fact, had warheads, and agreed to, in fact, a process of decommissioning them on the basis, of course, that there was going to be a guarantee of security from the other players at that time, that of the United States and Russia. There is also an argument and a school of thought that Russia also agreed back in 1989 in terms of not stepping into the matter of the reunification of Germany, and East Germany, reunited with the British American influenced West Germany. They agreed to that with the understanding that NATO would not, in fact, spread further eastward to effectively engulf these other Soviet states. But the reality is that there has been that march eastward of NATO, many other countries joining NATO, including Poland, including the Baltic countries, and that fear now that if Ukraine were to join the NATO pact, the NATO alliance, that would certainly mean that they would now have NATO or nearly almost all around their continued western border. And so much of this has been, of course, suggested that to be related to the kind of what we're seeing right now in terms of the actions that have been taken by the Russian forces led by Vladimir Putin, and the belief that, of course, this matter was to some degree pushed because of this expanding NATO agenda and NATO alliance. Of course, at this point, Ukraine still has not been able to join NATO. It is looking for security guarantees. Other countries within Europe, in Eastern Europe, are, of course, very much concerned that, in fact, if this action taken by Russia, by Vladimir Putin in the case of Ukraine, is allowed to stand, that it may very well be a continuation of actions of other countries potentially being attacked, and would then have to face the wrath of the Russian army and Russian military strength. And so this is where the context of a lot of the war that we're seeing right now is actually placed. And so the dependence, however, on the United States for military support has been certainly tremendous. The United States has, as I mentioned, of course, by far is um, the most powerful military force in the world. It spends the most. I think if you look at the spending on military, on defense in the world, like about half of that spending is by the United States of America. It surpasses all other players by far in terms of military spending and military um, capabilities. In the case of numbers, in terms of deployment, perhaps you will say that yes, there are some countries with pretty large armies. Of course, the Chinese army, pretty significant there. But when you consider that the United States is spending, in the region of about at least 3 times what the Chinese are spending, and certainly well over 9 times what Russia spends or is able to spend on its defense, on defense spending, then it's clear that the United States is the critical anchor in much of what was going on. Um, have they been the only ones putting forward resources? No. And of course, Europe has, in fact, from all indications, despite what we've been told by Mr. Trump, Europe thus far has, in fact, been collectively, though, the biggest contributor to that of Ukraine's war effort. But certainly not enough. And the shifts that we have been seeing, of course, in US foreign policy have certainly been astounding. And it seemingly has started off, of course, with significant overtures by the US towards, Donald Trump's government towards that of Russia, towards Vladimir Putin. We've also seen at the same time a hardening of the approach towards Ukraine, and the argument that Ukraine must effectively give up something to the United States for it to be able to potentially enjoy continued support by the United States of America. And of course, perhaps under that, we're seeing some of the geopolitical economic aspects coming forward in that regard, because what we have seen, of course, and we heard very much about it, is this desire for Ukraine to give up mineral rights, and mineral rights in particular for the sourcing and the extraction of what are known as rare earth with metals and elements. And in fact, just today we mentioned the periodic table, Dmitry Mendeleev, that Russian chemist. There are, of course, a number of elements which are very, very important, found in the ground. They have to be extracted, they have to be mined, which are very important because of their chemical properties, used in the manufacturing of a lot of equipment, a lot of battery technology, a lot of chips that are actually now very important in the push towards renewable energy, whether it's from wind, whether it's from EVs, electric vehicles. And so this is why this search and desire for these elements are very, very important. Now, China, which was nowhere near being so significant back in at the end of the Cold War in 1990, over a period of 30 years, has soared in terms of its economic output. And I think I saw one particular graph that showed that I think, again, China has been effectively almost doubling the size of its economy every 8 to 9 years. That has been the pace of growth that they were seeing in the period of the 1990s, in the 2000s. Tremendous economic growth, which of course has now placed it not yet on par with the United States, but certainly has become amazingly indispensable in the geopolitical landscape. And they certainly have been able to expand their own sphere of influence into many regions of the world. And they have also been blessed as a result of having some of the resources, the natural resources that are needed to be able to support this tremendous growth in renewable energy, in the technologies of the future. And that is, of course, very important because China, the world's factory, the world's largest manufacturing output, world's largest exporter, is number one in so many things, including renewables. They're the largest user of solar, largest user of wind. They're building remarkable infrastructure. Whether it's from high-speed rail to autonomous rail, rapid transit, you name it. And as well, of course, in the big thrust towards electrification of the transport sector, they are the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles in the world. So we're seeing a significant pivot, even away from the traditional manufacturing centers of Europe and North America, and a concentration of much of that in Asia, and in particular, of course, in China. And so there are lots of speculations as to what is the motivations regarding this tremendous warming or attempts of overture of warming towards Russia. Some have hypothesized that it is perhaps a strategic move on the part of Mr. Trump and some of his interests towards really trying to embrace Russia and to pull Russia away from Chinese influence, and to somehow hope that in doing so, Russia's resources may become more secure and for the use of the United States of America. It may also be a means of trying to quell an existing conflict which is going on in Europe, with the hope that the United States would then be able to focus more on the impending potential conflicts in the Asian region, and in particular in the South China Sea, and involving China and its growing ambitions, of course, to reclaim Taiwan, as well as to push further out into the South China Sea in a hope to increase its economic space for the exploration of marine-based minerals and other resources. So that's an interesting thought by some people who are looking at this situation and wondering, is this in fact the game plan? Or is it really more to do with egos? Is it more to do with trying to create deals in the name of the United States of America? Because you have that stance towards Ukraine, but you're also seeing very strange stances at that very same time with a number of other traditional players and traditional partners of the United States of America, whether it may be Canada, And of course, the trade war that is pretty apparent at this point in time, the tit for tat that is going on across that, what is it, the 49th parallel, and this situation of suggesting reciprocal tariffs and potentially that impact of what it would mean for European trade with the United States of America stands the question, why have to treat your old friends in that way, simply to make a new friend in the case of Russia. And that is the big question mark at play here. But clearly, we've been seeing this unfold in a fairly remarkably astounding, and perhaps one can say certainly very undiplomatic diplomacy in front of the world's eyes. The treatment, of course, of the Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, in the Oval Office is something that perhaps we have perhaps never really seen on live television, or being able to be captured in such a way before. And that, of course, is very, very, very telling. It certainly means that many countries have had to rethink their position in the world, and of course, in particular, Europe has taken a stance that it has to rethink its own defenses, because effectively, it would appear that the United States is saying, "Well, you know what, guys, you're going to have to fend for yourself." And some may argue, some may look at this and say, "You know what? This is really, in some respects, anecdotally, a squabble amongst the family, right?" And to some degree, of course, there are still strong cultural similarities between East and Western European countries. Some may say that there are more commonalities in the greater scheme of things than differences, and that maybe it's a situation, especially across the Atlantic. The rich distant cousin of the United States of America is saying to these two other cousins, guys, you solve your own battles. I'm no longer going to be taking sides in this matter. You're going to have to fund it on your own. It certainly raises the questions: what are the motivations in terms of what is driving these types of positions before? Because we could say before these were ideological wars. They were significant ideological differences, whether it's between communism, social communism, and the capitalist West approach, a democratic approach, and the clashes with respect to those two differences were perhaps very real in the past, and was continued to drive a lot of the fears moving forward. Is the United States effectively now pivoting to suggest somehow that Russia, which has been known to be pretty autocratic in terms of how things have been going, and the ruthlessness that has been seen in the actions of invading Ukraine and a lot of other instances, and in their support of a lot of other issues around, whether they have now all of a sudden decided that it's better to embrace Russia so that it can in fact focus on the real dragon in the room, perhaps. Well, we'll have to see how that, of course, continues to pan out before our eyes. That's our dish of the day. It's a little bit long, but we'll now take in our weather report.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Thank you, Calixte. We now take a look at the latest weather report as of 12 noon today, brought to you by Island Style Tile and Bath.
Island Style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh, yeah.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all at Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
That is right. Now look at the latest weather report as of 12 noon today. It's the 6th of March, 2025, and the forecast of the SARS Venantius Descartes. A look at the forecast for St. Lucia, valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east, southeast, and the east near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour, with the weather mainly fair and hazy. On to the marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. Low tide for the Castries Harbour will be at 3 minutes before 4 this afternoon. High tide will be at 10 minutes after 11 tonight. The Vieux Bay's low tide will be at 24 minutes after 5 this afternoon, and the high tide at 17 after midnight. The seas moderate to locally rough. The waves 5 to 7 feet, the same as 1.5 to 2.1 meters in open waters. Small craft operators and seabathers are advised to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. Please be guided. For the Lesser Antilles, it's partly cloudy to cloudy with some light to moderate showers over the northern portion of the Lesser Antilles. Elsewhere will be fair and hazy. The weather summary indicates the Atlantic high-pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean during the next couple of days. And moisture and instability in the lower levels of the atmosphere will cause some cloudy periods with showers over portions of the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. That is, the Atlantic high-pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean during the next couple of days. And moisture and instability in the lower levels of the atmosphere will cause some cloudy periods with showers over a portion of the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And that's the official weather report. Join us again in the morning at around 7 thereabout when we'll have another official report from the Met Service due on the station. But a reminder that there's an advisory out for small craft operators and seabathers to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. Thank you very much, Venantius, for the update. The weather was made possible by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island Style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all at Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back. Of course, we are covering this matter of the ongoing war in Ukraine and the major shifts with respect to U.S. foreign policy. I was just reading one piece here that suggested that Mr. Trump wants to support the opposition in Ukraine. But anyways, we'll hold that for a little bit and head to the phone lines at this time to take in a call. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. Judge.
How are you doing, caller?
Not too bad.
Very good.
Yeah. And you have a very good topic here there today. So I'll change my topic. I change it.
Oh, I'm sorry for changing your topic.
The
Okay.
world become very hypocrite. Very, very. Most of the people watch what's going on in the world and they keep their mouth shut.
Quiet,
Why
huh?
is that?
Yeah, well, I think it's a situation of where you have uh, such a powerful country,
Yeah.
right? Now headed by an individual who a lot of people are so very unsure as to how he's going to react, right? We've seen his tendencies to be very explosive and to take perhaps even a bit of a vindictive approach towards how he manages things, to say what he says, and he'll say something today and he'll say, well, he didn't really mean it, 2 days' time. Uh, Lots of uncertainty. And I think a lot of countries, a lot of leaders are trying to figure out how to approach these long-standing
Well, I'll give you one
relationships.
point as what you said.
Yeah, sorry.
Look, the Gaza,
Yes.
the Gaza. That what Benjamin Netanyahu get away with there. By all now, Mitt should be in prison, and he's still going and do more, killing more people. And America encourage what's going on there. They are the one that send all the sophisticated weapon that you let go one bomb and it takes three skyscraper down. And people watch and they said nothing. Europe watch and they just go in the shell as if there's nothing happening. And today Trump going back there and say he's going to move all the people on the Gaza Strip, and they're already moving those on the other side. And what will happen there? They're telling you how we're going to build there, how we're going to do. That is lie. When the whole to know is lie that going on there. They know the amount of oil and gas from the Gaza Sea to the Mediterranean.
But
And
caller,
all
that
these things
flies completely in the face of all these institutions and the values that the United Nations and the rights of countries. I mean, to say that you're suggesting forced removal of millions of people from a place that they have known to be their home for all their lives and their parents' homes and whatnot, and to say that you're going to move them away and take them away from the land that they've been fighting for so long, all right, so that they can
back
and become further refugees in other countries, right? So that you can now build a Disneyland Riviera type of space, for tourists. I mean, it is an unbelievable statement to make in this day and age,
well,
because
I kind of in my shell and I trembling because I never know. That's how the world will go.
And you're right, caller. I mean, that statement by Mr. Trump, in all honesty, to be quite frank, should have been condemned by all world leaders, right? Because it can never be acceptable. It could never be right, right? That this is a proposal that you're making, that you're just going to move, well over 1 million people after all that they've already been through, right? And these people are coming back. They want to come back to their homes. They want to rebuild, right? And to suggest that you're gonna take them away. I mean, when we used to see things like that, caller, it's like it's like back in the 18th century with the British and the Garifuna. The people they're fighting in. In these islands, in St. Lucia and in St. Vincent, and you just take them away and you send them somewhere else. I mean, it really is, very, very, very appalling.
There's an island there where when they wanted to try the nuclear bomb,
the Chagos Islands. You're talking about in the Indian Ocean.
Out of that island, everyone was out.
Yeah. Well, that's still I think it was quite recently
the people
determined, right, that they want to go back to their homeland. I think there's a connection with Mauritius trying to settle that.
I don't know if it's in the Indian.
It's in the Indian Ocean
or further, but the people want to go back, and they won't allow them back. But America take them by drone and just move them to try keep testing the bomb.
Yeah.
You see, and this thing, I almost in my shell to know and watch this thing, and people playing hypocrite. There's some of them saying like they don't know what's going on. They know well. All the big country in Europe, they know Trump after the people, the oil, the gas, is that he after. The man is a greedy man, a greedy old fat. Okay? Good afternoon, Mr. George.
Okay, thanks very much for that comment, caller. And there's been a alternative plan that has been put forward now since that has occurred. I think being led by Egypt, that they are looking at a reconstruction plan for Gaza. And I think they've gotten the support of a number of Arab countries, but it's a tremendous amount of money that is required. I think it's the one estimate was like $46 billion for the reconstruction of Gaza, trying to do so in an incremental way, at least trying to get people back in and setting up sort of container homes for them in the interim until they can, get going in terms of the major construction. And of course, there's a tremendous cleanup job that has to be done in that country. It is was a very densely packed region, a very relatively small. I think less than 100. But no, a little bit over 100 square miles, a little smaller than Barbados, but very, very densely populated, and tremendous devastation in nearly every single part of that, the Gaza Strip. Let's take in a call at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing, caller?
How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Same to you. The first time calling the Lunchroom for the year.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
You know, I follow up the last caller about Trump. Is it not true that Trump got more votes than his opponent in the last election?
Than his opponent in the last election?
Yeah, he got more votes than his opponent in the last election.
You mean he got more votes than Kamala Harris? Yes.
And therefore, he had the popular vote, right?
He does have the popular vote.
Yeah. Now, it's also true that the Republicans control both the House and the Senate.
That is correct.
Now, I don't know if you watched his address to the Congress, during Congress, we saw it happen. That once we were saying everything about Trump, the Republican senators and Congress, men and women, were giving him tremendous applause.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it seems to me that Trump is not acting alone. Trump has support.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
All right? What is strange for many of us is that what we thought years ago was normal is now abnormal, and what we thought was abnormal is now normal. So many of us are still confused because Trump is breaking the rules. He's not conforming to rules. You know, and that is not strange to me because I remember growing up in a St. Lucia where John Camden wanted to have a deputy from the opposition benches, and he wrote to the leader of the opposition. And Kenny Anthony told him no.
Mm-hmm.
What did John Camden do? He quickly asked Marcus Nicholas to resign, and then he became deputy speaker.
Mm-hmm.
In turn, Kenny Anthony won the election. He asked Pep to be his deputy speaker.
Mm-hmm.
What did Alan do? Alan Chastney.
He didn't put anybody. Well, he put Mrs. Sarah Flood for, I think, a week.
Lawyer as his deputy today for the opening of Parliament, and next day she resigned.
Right, and became a minister.
And then he said to us that in the House there's no party. Okay? If you're a member of cabinet, you cannot be a deputy speaker. So the deputy speaker must come from the members who are not in cabinet, whether you like it or not. That was a change. He moved from the tradition, from the custom. And that is what I see Trump. Right? Trump is using the law, right? right? He's used, to his benefit. He's using executive orders.
But no,
to
but
his
caller,
benefit.
if I may just interject,
Go ahead.
there, as you said, there are customs, there are norms, but there are also laws. Right now, norms and customs I mean, they're just you do them because it's how it's usually been done. It's a cultural thing, you could say, but a traditional thing. But when it comes to the law, right, you are expected to follow the law. Now, I think the mistake, like, and you gave an example in the case of the deputy speaker matter. I thought it was unfortunate that never went before the courts fully. To be properly aired out, because it would have been useful to have gotten some sort of judgment with respect to that matter. I think there was an attempt to do so by Mr.
Is appropriate.
by Mr. Francois, right? But I don't think we never got a judgment as far as I know.
But we just have a speaker, deputy speaker.
Right.
But Alan kept to saying that his members are in cabinet, so they cannot hold office.
Right, but in the case of the United States, we are in fact seeing a number of legal challenges towards some of the actions that are in fact being taken by Mr. Trump. So I think, I mean, obviously there's a lot of speculation as to how some of it will play out, because I mean, again, the legal system in the United States is not completely removed from the politics. We do know how many.
No, it's true.
Yeah, you know how judges are appointed.
Therefore, nothing they do will surprise me. I will not be surprised tomorrow morning if I hear U.S. troops land in Panama and say they take over the Panama Canal. Because America has done it before. You know what I want us
but you realize, Okola, that really changes everything in the world, you know. I mean, because the whole system that we've been putting forward for quite some time is that, look, we are going to respect all countries. There's the United Nations. There's rule of law. There's international law. There should be consideration and regard for countries to be able to determine their own selves and to have the rights to their own sovereignty. And for now,
I want to agree with you totally in that we say a lot of things like the Far East, but we do otherwise. Look, you know the number of raising change America, England, and France have done in the world?
Oh, certainly.
Go out there and do it. So there's nothing new, right? I wrote in a chat that I bet on China and Russia to guarantee me my rights than America and its allies. Those people have gone out and killed leaders, especially for us black people in Africa, etc. They've done it.
So we are going to. So basically,
we don't know that.
So basically, we are going to be saying that, look, might is right. If you don't have strength, you keep quiet, right? I mean, that is
what they have done. Unless you see, as a trade unionist, right? I know that I alone cannot deal with the employer because they're stronger than me. As a consumer, I understand that. It's only when you come together. See, if you take 20 matchsticks, right, and try to break them together, it's hard. But you could break one by one. So the poor and the marginalized have to come together. That is where we have strength in unity. But we're in a world now where everybody are about their own selves. We become very selfish and greedy. We don't have solidarity again, Calixte. Because, let me tell you, I used to think that the Soviet Union, when it broke up, that was strange to me. I now think of that. Okay? Then Warsaw Pact had broken up, then all of that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But for me to see that a nation is publicly, right, videotape, committing genocide, I do not think that will happen in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Zimbabwe is doing it. Yet Britain, America, who was given them the arms to do it, were there. We saw it happen. Right? So what is it that Trump will do that will surprise me? Right? Yet Zimbabwe and his men said publicly that is from the river to the sea. That they will exterminate, how they call him, they don't call him Palestinian, they will exterminate those people. What Trump is saying, we are seeing Trump say that, right? But listen to this, the narrative. The narrative is to get the Palestinians out of there. listen to the narrative about black people. You know,
Well,
the English
caller,
are
the
best at it.
implications.
Remember, Windrush came, we did nothing. People who left St. Lucia, the islands in the 50s, etc., went to England, the British passport. Now they are nobody. They send them back home. So when Trump tomorrow does it, right? Trump is not the first to do it. We did nothing. Calixte, that's all I want St. Lucian and listeners to hear. When people are doing wrong, they're doing evil, and we say nothing and do nothing, right? We are part of it.
And so to come to the point, because these things are not democratic, right? We cannot be proposing to be the most democratic place in the world, and those are the kinds of actions that are being put forward, that you can simply you want to buy out another country in the case of Greenland, or you want to just take control over Panama.
Your last caller was telling about Diego Garcia, right? An island. Here is the English going to the Indian Ocean. They find people living on an island. How can you find people on an island and then you own the island? You get to own the island, the people in it. How can it be yours? They say Diego Garcia to the Americans with the people on it. Right? Those things have been happening, But again, the English people, the Scottish people who went across to North America, right? They found people living there, right? And they claim the land that is theirs. How could they learn of the people? They find the people, the land is yours, right? So it's not now that mindset has been there,
Yeah,
Alex.
no, caller. We know.
Smell the coffee and say no. Let's put a fight to that. What the biggest thing for me, I want to end up with that, is that my motherland is Africa, and that we have to fight for that not happening. Because I have been saying to my African friends, they did it some time ago. The English, the French, the Belgium, all of them are there. All of them are there, right? We must prevent from doing it. Africa must be for us. That is what, and I want to commend people like Mia Motley, Keith Rowley, Deacon Mitchell, that they are now making ties with Africa. That is where we have to be. When I heard Trump talk and Elon Musk, who is a South African, whatever it is, I'm listening to Trevor Noah, right? Okay? That is what the guys are saying. Let's exterminate black people. Again, thanks to my political science lecturer, I like to tell people that. He taught me about the origin of family planning. Family planning started with exterminating black people in Argentina. That was the resident for family planning. What's her name? Sanger, right? They found that the black population was increasing too much. They exterminated, no, not exterminated. They sterilized 35% of the Puerto Rican female population. These are facts of life. So definitely, if you don't know it, it surprises you. But if you know those things, they don't surprise me. What is this that I have to do from happening? I have to educate my children and grandchildren about what people have done to us, and they can do it again. That's what they're doing again. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one. And we're going to have to put a pause on this discussion at this point because we're actually over time here at the Lunchroom. Very useful intervention. Thanks very much to all those who called in. And we'll be back at it again tomorrow, God willing, for another program of the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Have a good one.